welcome to the latest episode of Break&Dish. I'm your host, Chris.
I'm your lovely co-host, Nikema, and we have got a hot topic for you today. As always, we are relevant, we are relatable, and we are
real. And before we kick this episode off, which is a very, it's going to be an interesting topic, and listen, y'all just get ready for this. And as I pull this up, one of the things we want you to do is to make sure you go out and subscribe, hit that like button, tell everybody about what's going on, about our podcast. And listen, I saw something the other day that kind of blew me away. There's a quote. It said, "Have the courage to be disliked." Have the courage to be disliked. And maybe we'll do another full episode about that. But I know for me, there was a period and point in my life where I felt like I had to do things to please people and didn't want to be disliked. And it takes courage not only to be yourself, but to run the risk and the possibility of being disliked.
Indeed.
So with that, I want to kick off, maybe segue to a gentleman that passed last week, I believe it was, that over the last year and a half, 2 years, maybe since COVID, has caused somewhat of an uproar with some folks, and certain parts of the community, they may have embraced a lot of his methodology, a lot of the things that he taught. And then there was others that felt like, they were being picked on, or they felt, whatever the case may be. So for tonight's conversation, it really isn't about him, but it's kind of about him.
A little bit of both. I think it's befitting your quote of having the courage to be disliked, and I think this gentleman demonstrated huge courage in his platform, and you and I have had multiple conversations of points of agreement and disagreement about that. So I am ready. Let's get it. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So we saw a clip. Maybe it was earlier today. I think it was of a prominent pastor during a Mother's Day service. And this, just the one part of the clip, he was calling out this gentleman that just passed.
Give a little context, because you're being real abstract. So
Okay.
We're talking about the late Kevin Samuels, and then the comments made by Pastor Jamal Bryant, pastor of New Birth in Atlanta.
Indeed.
So we just going to be clear. We're going to be real. We're not going to beat around the bush.
Okay.
And I like to delve just a little bit into the controversy of Kevin Samuels to kind of set the stage.
Okay.
So Kevin Samuels was renowned for his very candid comments regarding both men and women. It seems that he got a lot more notoriety when he started to gear a lot of his content towards women who were calling into his show. He wasn't calling them at home. They were calling, asking for understanding what his platform was going to be. So I had some ambivalence about that and kind of the outcomes. When you know what you're going to get and you get it, I don't feel like you should cry about it. It just is what it is. So as I stated to you, I think that when you're offering advice, albeit in the greatest of intentions, and the underlying tone of his comments seemed to be that of intent to just have people do better. But I think it takes a certain grace to live in that lane where it's a little more receptive. And not everybody wants it palatable, and some may or may not agree with me, and that's your opinion. But my personal opinion is that is a place of gifting, to be able to talk to people about the hard things in their life, to be able to say, you got 5 baby daddies, and now who gonna want you versus you made some questionable choices, and now dealing with the hand that you have, what's your next step, and how is that reasonable? So those are my thoughts, but definitely condolences go out to his family. I certainly disagree with him more than I agree with him, and more so in the methodology than the undertone of his comments. So that's kind of where we're taking our show tonight.
And to that point, I think what's happened as a result of his meteoric rise, it has caused a lot of attention to be placed on the term high value man. That's it. Okay. And there's been for better or worse of the concept, there's been a lot of conversation around it. So when you talk about having grace, having it seasoned in a way to where people can receive it, I think the parallel even in a lot of things that happen today is that it's the shock value, and sometimes in that shock value, what gets most ratings, what gets most views, and that was just that direct approach that was very harsh in some contexts, that it turned a lot of people off. However, it turned some people on. So it didn't completely, turn a lot of people away, because he's garnered a lot of support.
Huge following.
Yeah. This preacher, Jamal Bryant, who has a world-renowned ministry, and who I personally think does a phenomenal job at ministering the word, I think fell into a trap to say the most relevant or, hit on the hot topic. So that's why I would entitle today's episode, the ClickBait Preachers.
Mm-hmm. And for those of our followers, subscribers, and those watching us who aren't, if that term is a little new to you, my grandma might be watching it. So granted, that means that they set up an ad or something in a way that makes it enticing for you to want to click on it. And it may not necessarily be the whole truth. It may be just a snippet of what was going on. And we saw the clickbait of Pastor Bryant's Mother's Day sermon. And it seemed that from that short clip that he was going in on the late Kevin Samuels. And in our kind of talking, I kind of tilted my head and said, I think we need to find a full sermon and listen to it. And it gave me some pause, but it also gave me some context. Mm-hmm. I think my pause was that Pastor Bryant, who I agree does an excellent job at exegesis the word, at making it relevant. He had a phenomenal sermon Mother's Day, and he's talking to women about all of the things that they have overcome and that their voice is relevant, and pulling them out of the historical context where people have taken out of context scripture to silence women and saying, use your voice, you're empowered, and it's needed in this time. But he did that, and I felt like he undid a lot of a great message by adding that 10 seconds in about the late Kevin Samuels, because it became clickbait. And now that's all that everyone is seeing. And you miss the message was 43 minutes long, and you miss all of the great information and accolades that he gave. Did not do justice to the message that he had obviously worked and prepared for to encourage the mothers on Mother's Day.
But let's keep it let's keep it a full buck, as the kids would say today. Mm-hmm. I think the reality is that we all that we look for, that it's the salacious topics that kind of keep us in. It's the reason, TikTok has become so, has blown up literally over the last year and a half, because it gives you a snippet of something that you can just, you get a 30-second, minute of it, and then you go right on to the next thing. And it's become a norm in our society that I just want the gossip of the day, or I want the hot topic, something that's going to keep the attention and then go on. And when you think of it from a preaching perspective, preachers, again, it's the trap of, wanting to say the things that are relevant, or hit on the hot topics, so that we, again, keep the attention, or we keep the subscribers, or we keep people coming back. But it's a thin line there. And the reason I say it's a thin line is because reality is none of us are perfect. And in our imperfections, sometimes you can be calling out somebody else's issue or calling out somebody else's stuff without regard to your own stuff.
Yeah, you're trying to tell somebody else they got a paper cut and you got a wound that's bleeding. You do have to be careful for that. I told you I think that Pastor Jamal Bryant's nickname should be Rubber Band Man, because he is obviously gifted and talented. He bounces back from every stumble, every rumor, every scandal, every truth and untruth. He finds a way to come back. However, I don't believe that the pulpit, especially when you have a platform to impact people, is the place for the comments like those that were made about the late Kevin Samuels. It was not the time or the place. If we wanted to, and he was speaking in the context of women, if you're going to submit, Pastor Jamal Bryant was speaking in the context of women, if you're going to submit to a man, make sure that he submits to someone and that he has the appropriate authority to even be giving you advice. But I think that there are a lot better examples than to use that of the late Kevin Samuels. I think that was in poor taste, and I think he set himself up for clickbait in that.
Well, I wasn't tripping on that part. I think what got me was, it's okay for us to disagree. Like, at the end of the day, you may not agree with somebody's platform. You may, it may be a talking point, right? And in this case, in the context or in the body of your message, it may be a reference point for you to talk about a piece that you don't agree with. I'm serious. Here's the part that I took issue or had a challenge or a problem with, is the fact that you're talking about, you use that and then to say, or he used it and then to say that, here's a high value man supposedly, but don't even have the money or had to do a GoFundMe, in order for his funeral. There's so much that goes into that, and I think that was a loaded statement that was very unfair.
Yeah, because in my line of work, I deal with death all the time and people in death, and when people die suddenly and their affairs have to be put in order, families fight for months.
Yeah.
The late Prince Rogers.
Yeah.
For years they're fighting, and everything is on hold. Money cannot move. Do you leave someone unburied while you're trying to, sort this out? And I don't know the state of his affairs, but I do know that his death was untimely to him, and he surely, hadn't had a long process that we were aware of where he was expecting that death would be coming soon. So there are times that happens to people and things are just not in order. And when you have children, you have ex-spouses, you have all of these people who may or may not have a vested take, but feel like they do. Mm-hmm. Now all of this has to go through probate. It has to go through estate and will and whatever else may or may not be out there to determine who gets what. And everything is frozen and it stands still. So as far as the GoFundMe, I just thought that was a dig, and you don't know the state of affairs, and you don't know that family, and maybe reach out to them.
Yeah. Well, and just to be fair, we're not saying that Kevin Samuels was by no means Prince.
No.
In terms of financial status, but nonetheless, an example, yes. Absolutely. So, what do we do in this space? How do we contend with stuff like that? Like, at the end of the day.
I think you have to be, you have to know how to sort it out and where to let it lay. For me, in hearing that. It doesn't change me being able to hear any positive and true word that he gives, that Pastor Jamal Bryant gives. But I'm side-eyeing because we shouldn't be taking digs at people, and especially not the dead. I mean, if you had an issue with what he was saying or doing, you have a platform. You have media attention to be able to have this conversations with him if you felt like it was so impactful to black women in general, or to black people in general, because he came hard for black men too.
He did.
So you know, I think that Pastor Bryant could have done that a different way, and I'm gonna leave that there. But I think it was a little bit tacky.
Well, so here's my note. If you got a problem with something that somebody's saying, real time, address it while they're alive. Like, don't wait until after the fact and now you want all of the smoke. I mean, Kevin's been on, he done been on Vlad TV. He done been all over the place. You know about Vlad, you know, Lil Boosie and Vlad. You know. But Kevin's been on a lot of different platforms to essentially address the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying that to say anybody that took issue with his platform certainly had the means while he was meaning you had the opportunity to while he was living. And I just think it's distasteful. And even the people now that have vehemently disagreed with his platform, that have been so vicious, like, you know, that's his karma and good for him. Like, at the end of the day, I'm just saying, just be careful with stuff like that, because you never know, you know, the same stuff that you putting out in your distaste, dislike, disagreement with someone else, that stuff can come back hard for you.
So here's my unsolicited opinion in watching the Mother's Day message with Pastor Bryant. I think he missed a key opportunity to close his message in the way that it started. He came in talking about women's rights and suffrage and African Americans gaining the right to vote and all of these things, and then talking about the power and the influence of a woman over her home, her children, and being able to invoke change. CNN in 2020 said that black women were pivotal. They headlined them as being pivotal in the Georgia elections and the change that was going on. Now we have some elections coming up next week, some primaries all across this nation. But in his state, where women demonstrated that they have a huge footprint and they can turn that dial and turn the red state blue, why not close on that and reminding people that voting is coming up, that the same women who were so impactful in 2020, 2021 in the presidential election, you have that same power. Right. And let's demonstrate that. And I think that would have been a more a better continuum of how he started that message, and also have some relevant influence of maybe some of the things that we should be using our power of voice and influence to talk about. Mm-hmm. The pulpit is not the gossip place. And it's, you know, the GoFundMe and all this stuff, speculation, truth, whatever. That's not the place for it.
Again, I'm just saying, you open yourself up to so much other stuff, because I'm sure there's some rumor reports on him.
On who?
On Jamal Bryant. You know,
there are. And people are, he's getting a lot of backlash, like the comments on social media and across just small and large media outlets is a hailstorm of fire. Right. For one segment misplaced in a powerful message, a message that was obviously shifting, impacting people's lives. You can see the emotion of the congregants there. That one misplaced jab from social media, from the relevant to the world right now, placed in a message about hope, about a forgiving God, about not hating people, about women being empowered and all that they have endured. Misplaced rock the whole message on its kilter.
But it's not, to your point earlier about being rubber band man. This ain't nothing that he ain't had to bounce back from before. So this, this dude, he ain't new to it. He's certainly true to it.
Man falls 7 times.
He gonna come right back. And I absolutely applaud him for that, man. Because at the end of the day, like I said, we all have some things that we've dealt with, some things that we deal with, and he is certainly no different than any of us. And I think it's a beautiful thing when he and others can stand in that place of humility, stand in that place of understanding, and not, even if you felt like Kevin Samuels was doing something that was detrimental to our community, using it as and maybe he did think that. So now I'm kind of talking through it. Maybe he did think that the excerpt or the piece that he was talking about, he was using that to do what you were expressing, and that is to galvanize, to bring, the women to pour back in what this man was stripping out. I'm reaching, possibly. But,
you're reaching.
Okay.
You're reaching.
I'm just trying to help. I'm trying to help the black man out.
Does he have like a sounding board, a relationship with somebody that can give him that feedback? We talked about earlier about Kevin Samuels just kind of giving it like it is. People are soliciting it, and some people just need to hear the hard truth. But I think in that, the one thing, and you and I have been having this discussion for 3 years, the one thing that's missing is relationship. So the people that feel that they're relatable to him, they hear him and they hear it differently. Mm-hmm. And I think that's in anything.
Yes.
So
yes,
there has to be a relationship, in order to move that forward so that people can hear and receive. And I just think it was messed up. Like, I don't think that you take someone who's deceased, whose family is grieving, in shock, and you get your national platform that you can use to steer and direct so many things, to talk about one of the most controversial things in social media that's out there, that has you've given it life again.
Yeah.
If you felt that it was so detrimental to the community, why do you keep breathing life into it? And you just breathe a huge breath of life into his platform. Again,
to your point, if you felt it was so detrimental, this guy's been, prior to his death, like you said, he had a social media presence, I think, for the last 10 years, if not longer, where he started doing fashion and some other things. But then I think about 2 or 3 years ago is when he first started giving men advice, giving men dating advice. Mm-hmm. And he was, by comparison, the contrast to the Derrick Jackson. Stop laughing. But so these social media personalities or characters, began to come up, and he was one that essentially was talking, his main audience, his core audience was to men. And it wasn't until, he started having those conversations now with women going, well, what can we do? What can I do? That it started to open the door. But going back to your point, this wasn't new. So this guy's been in your same city all of this time. So if you felt it was that bad, that much of an issue, put a phone call in. I'm sure you got people that know him, that can get in touch with him, that Indeed. Could have been a very easy conversation or a very quick connection to say, come on over here, let's do a quick, podcast, or let's do something to have a conversation so that we can talk about it. Because 80 to 90% of my church and my followers are women, or possibly women in this demographic you're talking to. And I have to minister to them. So I want to hear what you have to say so that we can help us.
Relationship. And that was missing. So I think that the underlying tone of what the late Kevin Samuels was saying, it had some beneficial nuggets in it. But there are some people that are they're just controversial on purpose. They're just going to be antagonistic just because. And they just don't manage themselves well, and they're a hot mess. And they drop a hot mess on everybody else.
You want to talk about that alpha male dude that we was looking at? Look at your face. Why your face changed? Okay, when you talk about?
You can talk
No. This, like you said, your granny watching, so we don't want to, get too.
Oh, Granny got her opinions, don't you, Gran?
No, okay. All right. So I felt like we have exhausted the topic already. We are done on that.
Well, I think a good wrap-up question. Let's take about 30 seconds apiece and give our opinion on is the pulpit the place for clickbait?
All right, you go.
No. 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 It is not. And sometimes, most times, having a relevant story does help to bring your message home. But the relevant story shouldn't be at the expense of someone else. And it certainly shouldn't be at the expense of someone who is no longer here to speak their piece or defend themselves. That's not what we're called to do. That was in poor taste. We all fall. I've done some things in poor taste. I think that Dr. Bryant is an excellent orator, and he will absolutely have some follow-up words, and I'm looking forward to hearing what those is, and I hope they start with an apology to the family.
Okay. All right. Well, you actually took a minute, so you took my 30 seconds too. So at the end of the day, I don't disagree. I absolutely agree with you. But I think when to you going back to the earlier point of relationship, if we really have a heart to get it right and to do it right by one another, then we should be intentional about creating those lines of communication. So,
Absolutely.
So as we close out today, who are some, since we're kind of talking about preachers, and it's something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, obviously, who are some of the preachers, or who are you listening to today? Like T.D. Jakes, who are some of the folks that's catching your ear?
Listen, I think Bishop Jakes will always be a classic to me.
Okay.
Just the way that he walks, talks, and breaks down that word. Yes. Don't do Bishop. Will always be a classic. And there's not a time that I'm needing to hear something. I can't go Google, YouTube, and I know he's been at this a long time, but finding something relevant. I think also on the newer spectrum, and I'm just thinking of some of the pastors that are out there with large social media presence and large followings that we see often, because we certainly have our local favorites and people and our leaders that we are always before them for guidance and wisdom. But I think my other would be Pastor Keon.
Okay.
He is just laid back, relevant and honest.
Okay.
So yeah, those are my two.
Okay.
If I had to take it way back, my number one gonna always be.
Don't say it.
GE.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed.
Dr.
Always.
Patterson.
Dr. Patterson.
Dr. Patterson. Okay. But yeah, Keon Henderson of Lighthouse Church. Hey man, I sent you some messages. I told you we need a lighthouse over here on this side. But
where is this side?
In the Charlotte, North Carolina area.
Okay.
But an amazing word, amazing preacher and delivery. Certainly a relevant word. I think for me, Dr. Darius Daniels has been doing the thing for a few years for me. Very practical.
He put them series together, don't he?
Yeah, he can chop some words up and make you go, wait a minute, and you got to go back and listen to him a few times. So I like the two of them. And if I had to go back, this is where I thought you were gonna go. But listen, I'll never forget. Every Sunday after church, this is after church, after we've been in church 2-3 hours, and we go over to my cousin Lulu Bell Dixon house. Rest in peace, Lulu Bell. Cousin Lulu Bell used to make the best lasagna. We go over there to eat after
Sound
church.
like you making that name up.
No, I'm serious.
Her real name
Lulu Bell. Lulu Bell Dixon.
All right.
And her husband, Esky Dixon. he would love to come home after church, sit on his couch. Sit on his recliner, and he would turn on Fred Price.
Yes.
And it was something about listening to Dr.
Yes.
Fred Price that even though I had been in church for hours, like I was just mesmerized at watching him deliver. He looked like one of the light-skinned Whispers because he was light-skinned and had a thick mustache. But I was
related all the music.
Listen. So, but yeah. So check out. In fact, shoot us in the comments who you've been listening to, who some of your favorite pastors are, ministers are that you've been listening to lately. We love to hear them. And like she said, we have some local men and women of God that we have connected to that we love to hear every week. And also maybe we'll come back and talk about the impacts that the pandemic has had on the church and how that's kind of changed and reformed and transformed in some cases the way we interact, the way we connect, and what we believe to be the outlook. Because I don't think we'll ever go back to the way it was.
Yeah, I agree.
So maybe that's something we'll break and dish on a little bit.
All right, we'll break and dish on it. I think we'll dish on it more than we'll break. But yeah.
I think so. Again, don't forget to subscribe, hit those like buttons, get the word out. Appreciate you tuning in and
share our broadcast. Send it to your friends.
Get it out there.
Shoot it out in Messenger, whatever media platforms you use.
Tell Mama on them that we out there. You got to show Mama how they're working on the phone though. Mama won't know how to pull it up, so you got to show her how to do it on the YouTube. She gonna miss the word all up.
So don't do it.
Oh, TikTok. Listen, there's this lady on TikTok that we love. The grandmother. She's like 96. Oh my God. So
Holla. Grandma Holla.
That's her name, Grandma Holla?
Yes.
Oh my God. We love her. Love her.
She's 96 and I believe she still will fight you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all day.
Yeah.
So we following you.
Yes. So another topic, but again, love on your people.
Absolutely. We can't control other people, but the best contribution we can give to this world and ourselves is to manage ourselves well.
My. She's a preacher. I love her. All right, baby. Love you.
I love you too, sweet.
All right. Y'all take care. Catch you next time.
We out.
Peace.